Point, let's see if we can join Dr. Aliyu Ilias on the line to speak to us in-depthly about some of these topical issues. Hello and a very good morning to you, Doctor. It's wonderful to have you join us on Morning Express today.
Morning, and thank you for having me.
And Eid Mubarak, I might add as well.
Thank you so much.
Well, first things first, let's visit the midnight shocker that has rocked the country, or should I say, NNPC Ltd, with the exit of Mele Kyari, who was the last GMD of the defunct NNPC and the first GCEO of the NNPC Ltd. What do you make of this development, and do you think this is quite timely?
Well, when the news reached the space, and I was actually taken aback, because you recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually reappointed Mele Kyari. Mele Kyari was actually appointed by President Muhammadu Buhari, and when his tenure elapsed in 2023, we saw President Bola Ahmed Tinubu making sure that he retained him. You also recall that he happens to be the longest serving NNPC, and he has also championed a lot of the reform. We must give him that. There was a lot of reform. He has also tried as much as possible to fight oil theft, vandalism. We have seen a lot of action coming from him. So for President to have actually removed him, I also have my challenges, because I expect courts to take over now. And why did I say so? Remember that during the, was it Aliyu, who was the board chairman? I think Aliyu is still in court, that the president does not have right to remove him. It has to be the shareholder. You recall that NNPC is not NNPC anymore.
Is that NNPC Limited?
It is NNPC Limited.
Exactly.
So when you want to remove a GMD, when you want to remove the CEO rather, there is need for consultation with the stakeholder. And who are the stakeholder in this case? We have the shareholder rather. We have the federal government, we have the state government, we even have the local government. So for him to just decide to remove them, I don't know if it should be contested. However, the GMD, Mele Kyari, has come, he has seen, he has solved a lot of problems, and his name is there. And now, I do not know what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu saw then that made him to retain him. I don't know what he saw 2 years down the line.
That made him to let him go.
That make him to actually remove. But he's the president. I think he has more information. But I was thinking he would have retained him for some time, so that he will see through the reform to an extent.
Well, we hear that there's changes or there's reforms, reshufflement in the leadership of NNPC Limited has been in the talks for quite a number of months now. And there were speculations that Mele Kyari would have to leave the helm of affairs at NNPC Limited, as well as the board chairman and, you know, all other executives that have been changed. I mean, about 11 appointments were made last night. Don't you think that perhaps the president might have made these consultations in confidentiality with the major stakeholders within the company before making this move public?
Right. So the fact remains that if the tenure elapses and the president decides to change, it would have been better. But the tenure is halfway, and we don't. For me, I don't see it coming, because I think he's performing. So, and I think a good hand needs to be retained sometimes, so that you can really understand the trajectory. Because the person coming now, I think, is from Shell, and the person may have to struggle to an extent, because a private entity is different from a public entity. And when you say public entity in this case, we still have the control of NNPC, even though it's limited, the ability, we have the control under the government. And you understand the bureaucratic bottleneck. So before the same thing happens to the former GMD who came from Shell also. What's his name? That Buhari has as the Minister of State for petrol, who will never last for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
So I think you have to look at it, and sustainability actually. In this case, it's not President Tinubu case. This is Nigerian case. We want a trajectory whereby we'll continue that upward movement of the oil production in Nigeria.
Well, Dr. Aliyu, you are an economist, and I believe you have been following quite closely the challenges and troubles that the oil and gas industry in the country has been facing. Even though Mele Kyari has had his own victories and wins within the oil and gas industry, but he's not without faults and he's not without his own downsides. What do you think this move or this change will bring about within the oil and gas industry in the country? Will Nigerians see any significant improvement in how they get access to cheaper petroleum products? What is the situation going to look like going forward?
Right. So I think the difference I will see now, first difference I will see is that Mele Kyari was a civil servant before, so before he transits to a private limited liability company. But this person that is coming to meet a structure that is private sector oriented, and going to bring to bear all his experience. But I must tell you, a private person will always be profit driven. So I saw this man as much more person that will be more profit oriented. So when we are more profit oriented, our oil is expected to be our last resort and is our mainstay of the economy. So sometimes we want it in a situation whereby you will not be looking at profits only, also be looking at the affordability from the people's perspective. So if you are looking at it from people's perspective, economists like me, we believe that it is only government intervention that will make things much more better, even though we believe in competition. But competition in this level now determine who is leading the competition. So at this point, they're actually leading the competition. So we are looking at it that a private person will only be profit oriented. That's the fear now. However, in terms of a private practice, it's going to be much more private oriented. That will give Dangote a good competition. It will also allow importation, so that will be a healthy competition. So healthy competition for me is going to be a good opportunity for Nigerians.
Now, Dr. Aliyu, let me just give you a brief overview of the reconstitution of the NNPC board. We hear that the president's former boss in ExxonMobil, talking about Pius Akinyelure, has also quit as the board chairman while being replaced by Amadou Musa Kida, who is an ex-big shot in Total Energies and, of course, a famous basketball administrator. Mele Kyari has exited as the GCEO, ending a lifetime of career in NNPC, while Bayo Ojulari from Kwara State is now the GCEO. Bayo is ex-MD of SNEPCO, the company holding Shell deepwater offshore assets. Now, you mentioned that he's in the private sector. Do you think that perhaps being all of these individuals coming in from the private sector into NNPC Limited will sort of revolutionize the sector in such a way that companies like Dangote Limited or Dangote Refinery, I beg your pardon, and other competitors in the game will be given a run for their money, and we'll see the old glory days of NNPC Limited being revived?
Right. I think mirroring the Saudi Aramco, all that private company that is being managed by a government. I think this is a good one for us because as a private person, his orientation is just different, and that's why I will call on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If you actually want him to perform, you have to also support him for him to break some protocol and actually deal with president directly. Because if you allow him to follow the bureaucratic bottleneck, it becomes a problem. Remember, we have ministers that he's supposed to be under them. Why if the autonomy is not full, why they also be with the president. But in this case, for a private entity to work perfectly well, there is need for him to be able to deal with the president directly, and by so doing, you have to achieve a lot of things. Then we need a lot of things beyond what we are seeing now. When we say private entity, they need to be listed as well so that we can see the transparency. So I think private person will bring more transparency compared to somebody who have the orientation of the government agencies. I think it's a good one at this point in time. Perhaps maybe President Bola Ahmed Tinubu want a total private operation for NPC, and that's why he bring a technocrat to take the lead.
Well, in your opinion, how would you score Mele Kyari as he exits NNPC Limited today, being the 2nd day of April 2025?
Right. So I think because he's the
After 6 years at the helm of affairs, I might add that.
pardon.
After 6 years at the helm of affairs.
Right. That's where I'm actually going. He has opportunity more compared to others. You know, Kukoloko, Juwon, Oniwon, all those ones. They don't really have those luxury of time. And because he has actually helped us during this, especially during Tinubu era, to tame the challenges we have in the oil and gas sector, you know, especially oil theft and what have you. And because also he has moved our barrel per day to very, very unprecedented level in the last 10 years. I think for me, I would like to score with 65%, because 65% is good for him because he actually put all his efforts to it. And we must also score the president who gave him the opportunity. You know, there is saying that whoever give you the opportunity must also stand with you. I think the president stand by him, and that really makes him to achieve. And it's to the glory of Mr. President. Mr. President now have more money to actually do more things in India. So I score him 65%.
Well, let's still stay with the oil and gas industry, Dr. Aliyu. We hear that the federal government is asking international oil companies to ramp up their investments in the oil and gas industry in the country. Now, of course, this statement was made by Minister of State for Petroleum Resources Oil, Senator Heineken Lokobri, at the cross-industry group meeting held in Florence, Italy, and organized by the IOCs operating in Nigeria. With this historic move and this rejigging and reshuffle done within the NNPC Limited, and also the minister, chiding IOCs to invest more in the oil and gas industry, would you say that there is light at the end of the tunnel for Nigerians finally when it comes to oil and gas?
Well, it's a good one that we have all of them fighting from different burner, which is a good one. So I think we must encourage them, we must do what we can do to make sure they invest more, because the more they invest, the more we get more benefit. And I'm happy that we have Dangote doing well, because with Dangote in existence, they won't have the confidence that yes, they can also exist side by side with Dangote. But what do we do to attract them? That's the question we should be answering. Have we actually solved our insecurity problem? As the challenges we have in Niger Delta going to a halt? These are the things that we need to look at, because for you to attract investors, you must also put things in place. And how about our inflation level? What are we doing to it? We have been able to rebase, and we are 24%. Are we saying it will stop increasing, or it will be decreasing? So these are the things that we need to look at. So for me to tell them to come, I think we have a very good opportunity for them to really operate. So we must also make our business climb very, very inviting, and there must be an incentive for them to come. So I think it's a good one, but the minister must also go with a lot of incentive to encourage them.
Well, when you say we must make it inviting and also ensure that there are incentives for these IOCs to operate here, what exactly do you mean in clear terms? Because it appears you're speaking in technical economic terms.
Right. When you want to come and invest in a country, there's a lot of things you have to look at. The number one I mentioned was security. How is the security like? The number two is, the moratorium that could be given to them. There's a lot of incentive you can give. You can say you have tax holiday for 3 years. You can also create infrastructure that will help them to actually, you can also stop vandalism. So these are the reassurance that you must give to an investor that will attract them to come. And they're also looking at our economy. How big is our economy? As at this point in time, we are like number 5 in Africa. By the time we rebase, we'll come back to number 1 or number 2. So these are the things they want. So you cannot compare operating in number 1 economy in Africa compared to operating in number 5 economy. Even though we have the natural resources that is attractive, what are we putting in place to encourage them?
Well, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Senator Heineken, has also threatened to revoke licenses of idle oil wells in the country. What do you make of this development, and why do you think perhaps some of these oil wells are idle? People have argued that the awarding of oil wells to certain individuals are politically motivated and not necessarily business oriented, and that is why we have oil wells being idle in certain parts of the country, especially the Niger Delta region.
Right. I want to salute the confidence of the Minister of State, Petroleum, who actually have the confidence. You know, when you have that area is another cover, when you have the confidence to even say that we are going to revoke whoever did not operationalize their licenses. Now, you know, investment sometimes is like a license being holding down to have value. So sometimes it may not be viable. It does not mean that the cost is a oil well that the profit is there. Sometimes, you know, people have alternatives, and there's what we call economic of scale. They must have check it and rate it and see it is it economically viable. Perhaps remember those people also have another country. So if you believe that the other country is giving you more money, it's giving you more security, it's giving you more opportunity, you know, you want to expand there and hold this one. And that's why he must continue to tell them that if you cannot operationalize it, please, I will revoke it. I think I salute his confidence. I think and he also need to probe further why are they abandoning those license. Because, you know, there's some political motivation that bring about the license too. You must also review that, because some people are politicians who decide that, well, we need to have it, and they have it and keep it. You know, they should give it to people that will operationalize that. And then I don't even know. He can also open a vista of opportunity to them by saying that you can also outsource it. You know, if you have a company, you may not be the one operating it.
Yeah.
So outsourcing can also come. We can outsource to global companies, and they will maximize it very well. If I can outsource to other companies that are operating in Asia, I've seen a lot of oil well being. In fact, if you look at oil well business itself, most of them are outsourced. So it's not a bad. You should also open that opportunity for them that they can outsource. At least let us see our oil well being operationalized.
Well, the president is also, you know, charging, we'll go back to NNPC Limited a little bit now, but still staying with the oil and gas industry. The president is charging, you know, the NNPC Limited to ensure that by the end of 2027, Nigeria's oil outputs is pegged at a staggering 2 million barrels per day. In your opinion, do you think this is a viable and achievable feat before we move on to other issues?
So if it is Mele Kyari, I would say yes.
And if not?
And if not, I would say, well, let's have a cautious optimism because of the new person that is coming. Because Mele Kyari actually moved it from 1.3 to 1.8 the point. That's a big achievement. So it would have been easy for him to use what he's using before, but only move it further. But this person that is coming, you know, he's coming with to meet a lot of challenges, I must tell you. You need to face the cabal. You know, where he's not operating, he's not operating in this particular area before. He's operating in private, not private public, you know, private public own. So you have to face a lot of things. But for Mele Kyari, it should have been just a level of rejigging. But for this person, I want to have cautious optimism, and let's see him coming on board to prove himself more further.
Well, quite a lot to be said about the oil and gas industry. Let's hope that these historic events that have happened last night will usher in, you know, a new era of, you know, the glory days of NNPC Limited and our oil and gas industry in the country. Well, moving on to other issues in the news, Dr. Aliyu, we hear that the federal government is yet to receive another $500 million from the World Bank. And a recent study or a recent survey has shown that in the last 20 months, Nigeria has borrowed about 13.21 trillion naira from the World Bank. You have always said that borrowing is not bad. Does this look good?
Right. So for this government, I would say borrowing at this point in time for me is becoming one that is too much, simply because this government have much more revenue compared to other governments since 1999. You recall that the first subsidy was removed simply because we hope that government will rake in more money and it will reduce borrowing. We are also hoping that with other policy like protection of naira, we are thinking that yes, government will make reduce their expenditure and have more money. We have seen a lot of way that government have tried to actually rake in more money. So in as much as we know that borrowing is not bad, can this government actually declare why they are borrowing and what they are borrowing for? Because if you don't borrow for a very good project, it becomes a bad debt. Let me give you an example. Makurdi axis, if you have seen the road and they're about to toll the road, I don't even know if they have told it, that will be paying toll. You can see that that's a good investment. You can also see during Muhammad Buhari, the money they borrowed to have a rail system working. It's a good borrowing. It may not pay itself directly, but by virtue of the advantage people take in the economy to find a way of paying itself in a multiple manner. So if they can actually declare why they are borrowing and what they are borrowing for, I think it should be good. Because you recall that at this early year, our budget was supposed to be 49 trillion, but President came out and said FRS has raked in more money beyond what we actually planned, and they jack it to 54 trillion. So that shows that there are more money coming in, even though someone like us think we should do bigger budget. But the fact remains that we can hold on. I was even thinking President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will surprise Nigeria that for his first tenure, if he upper budget of spending again, he will not borrow in first tenure, but maybe when he comes back, he will actually do that. And to my surprise, he kept on borrowing. And you can also see that the Kaduna State-led CBN, they're also boasting of having more money in foreign reserve. So I don't know why you have more money if you want to go and borrow.
Well, Dr. Aliyu, that's another thing that a lot of Nigerians are asking, and I believe a lot of Nigerians, including me. However, I want you to react to comments from the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Dr. Chinyere Almona, who had actually asked that the loan's direct impact on small businesses and the vulnerable populations through grants and livelihood support presents a potential short-term stimulus. Do you share these thoughts with the LCCI DG, and do you think that somehow these loans being amassed from the World Bank can impact small businesses and the vulnerable population in the country?
Right, and that's why I was asking about the direction of the loan. Like I said, borrowing is not actually bad, but the fact remains that over time we have had a lot of scheme for small businesses. I can recall that we have subsidy reinvestment (TOP) by President Jonathan, which we call UWIN.
Yeah.
It was a grant for small businesses. We have not seen the result up till now.
Yeah.
We also have the other one by President Muhammadu Buhari. Up till now, we've not seen it. Let's also take you back to President Obasanjo, who has NAPEP. We have seen the NAPEP just come and just go like that. So we must make sure that we structure what we're supposed to structure very well to actually fund these small business. Because when you say grants, that simply means that they will not repay. And an average Nigerian will collect money for a particular thing and we veer it to different businesses. And that's why sometimes most of us think government are not the good handler of grants and loan giving, because most of them give it to their proteges, give it to their political ally, and from there it will be shared by. Remember the one that happened by ZNDE, that was through local government or what have you. So we must make sure that the right people actually got the money, the right people with a proposal, because when small business cannot scale in 5 years, it's a problem. A small business must scale to be medium scale. From medium scale you'll be able to go higher. But if we fail to give investment opportunity to that level, it's a problem. But I must also tell you, Nigerian problem is that today is not getting money. It is the state of the economy. So if I get money and also my purchasing power, I also expend it into. So we must first and foremost try as much as possible to fix our economy first. So not giving money, because if you give me 10 million and I cannot even use it to rent, if the ordinary rent is 5 million, so how will I do business? So we must work on the economy itself to create a good enabling environment.
Now, of the previously approved World Bank loans under this particular administration, only about 16% has been disbursed, and staggering 84% is yet to be disbursed. Now, of course, the LCCI DG is worried that the absorptive capacity of relevant institutions and the risks of funds being underutilized or mismanaged is quite eminent. I think this sort of mirrors the statement that you just made before I started talking. In this sort of situation, how can we level up this figure? 16% disbursement out of 100 is quite a very low figure. Don't you think so, Dr.
Right.
Aliyu?
Right, and that's my challenge when we talk about loan. So I want to also encourage the World Bank not to also give loan. They should follow the loan itself and make sure that it actually do what it's supposed to do. So I believe the World Bank should not give loan at once.
Yeah.
When you give particularly 20% of it, ask for a report of it. Where has it been implemented? Just like the way NGO actually works. If you see NGO, if NGO have funding, the funder will not actually give them everything. Would have given them in tranches where you say after 6 months you give a report of what you have done, and by the time we check the reports from there, we can actually reimburse the remaining one. And talking about our institution as well, why will you collect money without disbursing? Why will you collect money and bear the money? I think there should be a law that will make sure that anything you collect the money for must be used for the money. Because if you use that money for recurrent and not for people that are supposed to be using
for the purpose it is meant for, exactly.
So it's a serious problem, and that's how it is, and it shows how organized we are. You know, if not that World Bank also have their own ulterior motive giving us money, you would have said we don't give you, because you know sometimes when World Bank is giving you money, they also have their own agenda. And that's why someone like us is talking about regional economy, whereby you look at your major problem and actually solve the major problem. We cannot continue to have incessant power supply and say we have money to do other things. Why not solve the power supply? Because if you solve the electricity problem in Nigeria, you would have given a small business. I can tell you how much myself expended on when there is no electricity on fuel. It becomes a serious problem. So we must solve the major problem, because if you don't solve the major problem, those other problems will erode the benefit of the loan itself.
Well, we'll get to the issue of the power situation in the country much later. I think that's item number 5 on the list of discussion here. However, let's talk about this $500 million loan from the World Bank. On the front page of the Daily Telegraph, the New Telegraph this morning, we hear that the fresh $500 million loan World Bank loan will escalate Nigeria's debt vulnerability. As an economist, do you share this line of thought? Is Nigeria at the edge of being a debt vulnerable nation?
Well, to be objective, the answer is no.
Why? Because you have always said borrowing is not bad.
Yes, because you know, I even advocate at the time that if you want to borrow, why not borrow big? We said that our deficits in housing need 5 trillion. Why not borrow 5 trillion and solve the problem at once, compared to borrow small?
But Dr. Aliyu, in the last 20 months, that's less than 2 years. Nigeria, this particular administration, I wouldn't want to just say Nigeria, this particular administration has borrowed over 13 trillion naira. That's a humongous amount of money.
Yes, and that's why I said why not borrow and follow particular sector. But the problem is that we cannot borrow in that manner, because the lender too will condition you that this is where we want you to spend the money. Not what you actually want, is what they actually wanted. And that's why we must be careful with that borrowing. So if you look at America as a country, they are the richest and the best economy in the world, and they are the highest debtor that borrow the more. If you look at Japan, the same thing. If you look at other good economy, but they are able to maximize the borrowing. And I can tell you there's a lot of arguments, debt to GDP, you know, we say debt to revenue. Yeah. You understand? When we start looking at that as an economist, we say no, we are still at a good level. Let me even shock you. By the time we rebase our GDP, Nigeria will say, we can now borrow as much as possible. So for me, in the long run, our argument is that what are you actually borrowing for? Does it justify the borrowing? And I can also say this, before we borrow any money, I will advise the National Assembly to be the final approving point. If the president proposes, let them take it to National Assembly. Let them debate it and see, does it really worth it? If it doesn't worth it, let them have the confidence to say, no, President, we don't need this. Let us manage what we actually have. I want to see us getting to that level.
Well, Dr. Aliyu, before we move on, I want you to react to a statement from the Apex Bank's boss talking about Cardoso. We'll just pick up a copy of this day newspaper and I'll read out the headliner and have you give your thoughts to this very interesting news. Cardoso jubilant as net FX reserves hit 3-year high, swells to 23.1 billion US dollars, while also revealing position enough to withstand external shocks. $500 million World Bank loan, LCCI advises federal government to focus on addressing power or poor power supply and high energy costs. Says loan will provide short-term stimulus with unsavory long-term macroeconomic implications. I think, Dr. Aliyu, this about captures the entire situation that we have been talking about this morning with regards to the loan. But your thoughts, please.
Yes, if you look at this loan, they are just for intervention.
Yeah.
And anything that has to do with intervention is temporal. So what do you do to stimulate, to make sure that things get normal? For me, I think Cardoso jubilating is coming too early.
Because why do you think so?
We have a lot of challenges that he has not been able to manage. Honestly,
what sort of challenges do you think Nigeria's economic sector is facing in general?
Yes, most of these I'm seeing look much more cosmetic. They're not the real thing. Now we have FX problem. You could see that it has been hovering around 1530 to 600. What have we been able to do? We also do have a NPR problem, whereby we have a issue of the borrow interest rates, whereby Cardoso administration is looking at a hawkish approach economy, where it's sacrificing growth because they want to drop inflation. But I think it should be balancing the two. The two should come together, right? And we also see other problems. I can tell you, Cardoso have developed about 35 framework to see that we solve the problem of forex. At the point he said it's really the change problem, they reduce them to about 600. At the point he said there's a cryptocurrency problem. At the point he says it's about removal of taxes on some foreign. A lot of things has been happening. So I think we should come to terms with the real economy. And we have not able to actually solve production problem. We have not been able to carry out a formidable import substitution, especially in pharmaceutical products. A lot of things has been happening in the economy that I think they should be more decisive. We have also not seen a good output in terms of agriculture, because I remember President Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared state of emergency on agriculture 2023. Up to now, we have not seen in fact marginal decrease in the cost of goods and services. It is the monetary policy that will help. And I must not say it's only monetary policy. We must look at our trade policy as well, because trade policy has a way in terms of fiscal side of things to actually correct and control a lot of things. So they must work hand in hand. So for me, I think we need to do more in our economy, because it's going to about 2 years of this government this administration. Next 2 months, I think. Yeah. Next month, not even next 2 months.
But so by May.
Do more. By May, so they need to do more to actually, because my fear is that by next year, early next year, politicking will start and it will distract the economy of Nigeria. By that time, we've seen artificial economy, not the real economy, because there will be more money for people.
I couldn't have said it any better, but of course you have your projections. Let's see what happens next year, and let's see if the man at the helm of affairs, at Nigeria's Apex Bank, will be able to stabilize the economy, stabilize the naira as well, and Nigeria will sort of not just stem down on its borrowing spree, but ensure that the relevant agencies and government organizations saddled with the responsibility of these disbursements do the needful. Well, moving on, Dr. Aliyu, let's talk about telcos in the country and their challenges, where Nigerians have decried poor internet connectivity. They have decried high tariffs of data and phone call tariffs as well. And many people are tilting towards Starlink for internet connection, a satellite-based company from the US. a subsidiary of SpaceX, of course, as you know it. However, we hear that telcos in the country are now targeting satellite services in order to counter this dominance by Starlink. Is this a good wake-up call for our telcos?
Well, you know, as an economist, I'm a lover of competition.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so we need to get away from cartel and go into competition, because those other ones, they look like cartel. When you have 4 people, 4 players, it becomes a cartel automatically. Yeah. So competition is always good. In fact, the first time I got to see the Starlink in my estate, you know, 200% can be user to, and it's very fast compared to what we have now. It's quite a good competition for those in that sector. So, but I think it's a good one. We must also give credit to our telcos, because they have liberated a lot of things. I remember before they came around, we used to go and queue in the bank. You have to do everything in the 4 wall of the bank. You want to buy, you have to go to the market, but they've been able to change the trajectory of that area. However, it's good that they're having competition and people are seeing alternatives to use. Let them also go to think and see how they can maximize. Satellite has been there, and the Starlink just came, and the Starlink has been planning to come for the past 2 years. So what are they waiting for? Why did they wait until it happens? That people now started considering that. And I'm also tell you that we have poor network these days. I don't want to mention them, but I can mention 2 of them that in fact, the last data I bought from them, I cannot even use it until my money actually elapses, because it does not function well. And the one that seemed to be better seem to be taking money, like what is called kalu. Do you know what is called kalu? Whereby you fix money in a jiffy, the money just disappears. And some of us are even thinking this is going beyond the normalcy. The telcos have to, in fact,
it now seems like extortion.
Honestly, like exploitation. You are taking advantage of the citizens, and that's why our arguments at the Consumer Protection Conference that I attended last time, I feel is that even these regulatory bodies, there seems to be teaching towards people that are supposed to regulate at the expense of the citizen. And I think they're supposed to fight for the citizen, not at every time. And perhaps they just increase the tariff. When you are increasing the tariff, we want to see a commensurate service delivery.
An improvement.
By this point in time, an improvement. But at this point in time, it's a 2 different thing. We are not seeing an improvement at all. The service delivery is getting poorer, and that's why people are looking at the alternative. I trust Nigerians. Once they see the alternative, they want to take advantage of it. So they must manage that poor service.
But Dr. Aliyu, the argument that a lot of people have in their minds at this moment is, if the telcos in the country have not been able to deliver effective, seamless service to Nigerians, both data and call services, what makes them think that switching to satellite services will be most effective? They can't handle the little one. Will they be able to handle the bigger one and compete with international and big companies like SpaceX and of course Starlink?
Right, I think it's possible, simply because it's about investment in infrastructure. I think the threat is there is for them to invest in infrastructure, and we must also not discuss other internet service provider, ISP, in Nigeria. You recall that it's not only call-driven company that is only providing data. We have a lot of them providing data service only.
Yes.
So where are they as well? They are the one that we think we should also even call out more, because they have to do research on how to give us, when you are going to optic fiber, others are thinking about satellites. And right from time, this invention that is coming, I think they should keep. So for me, there's no excuse. They should also invest in infrastructure and make sure they tap through the current availability of satellite network. I think it's a good one for Nigerians. We want competition so that we can have a better service in Nigeria.
I love your optimism, Dr. Aliyu, but how viable is this? Beyond just investment, beyond just investors pumping in their money, is Nigeria mature enough for such satellite services away from fiber optics?
Right. I recall we have this SAT1 by NICOMSAT that time. I think that the question we should interrogate is that does our NICOMSAT have the facility? Can they use Nigerian facility or they can tap into global facility? For me, if you ask me, I think the world is globalized. I think they can also tap into global facility. So if they are paying global companies that have satellite on, they can tap into it and abandon anyone that is there. So we only have to say, I recall the last time I went to the NICOMSAT, they were able to show me a lot of things and they said they are preparing to launch another one. So we are waiting for when they will launch it. Perhaps if they launch it, it will be of benefit to these telcos. But because we need infrastructure, I think government must also speed their own part to make sure that they launch our own satellites as well, because it has a lot of advantage.
Nigerians are already decrying the high rate of data and call tariffs. Do you think switching to satellite services, especially for telcos in the country, and perhaps those data providing or data service providers will be affordable enough for Nigerians to, to purchase? At the moment, it appears that Starlink is only made for a certain demographic of people who have the financial the net worth and financial strength and muscle to purchase it. How affordable will this be?
All right, let's look at this way. You recall that Telcos, they are the good example of privatization in Nigeria.
Yes.
If there's any successful privatization that has ever happened to Nigeria, you recall it is Telcos. You remember the first one that came with per minute. By the time the second one will come, it's going with per second. By the time the third one will come with your data. So a lot of competition in that area as at that level. So I don't want them to rest on their oars at this point in time to also face the challenges. I will agree with you, and I will let you know that Nigerian sometimes want a better service. Is it not Nigerian that are actually buying the Starlink? By the time it gets to, if there is competition at that level, it will bring the price down. Like I give you example of per minute to per second, it will actually bring competition, and that's why government must also take cognizance of the citizen. I mean that they also invest in the infrastructure for them. If they tap from government infrastructure, the thing can be affordable for Nigerians. So we should call on our country.
Hello, Dr. Aliyu.
President.
Well, Dr. Aliyu, I didn't get that last part. I think your connection sort of...
Yes.
Yeah.
What I was actually saying is that the president of the Nigerian president and the minister for digital economy,
yes,
and the NCC, this challenge falls on them. They should invest more in infrastructure for those telcos to tap in from. They must not left on only them to do more. And you could see the Bosun Tijani, I think he's doing well. He should also look at how he can provide the infrastructure.
Well, how about accessibility to the telecommunications industry in Nigeria? I know we have talked about it a number of times here in the studio about how very difficult it is to get licensed to operate as a telco in the country. And yet we are calling for more competition, more investment in the industry, more involvement of top-tier investors in the telecommunications industry in Nigeria. How do we address this issue, and how do we ensure that it's a part of the economy or an industry that is more open to investors to easily come in without necessarily having to go through the bottlenecks that would discourage them?
Right. I think at a point in time, I have the opportunity of looking at the licensing procedure. I can tell you it's very, very difficult. So, and that's why most people are not coming. In fact, for the past 15 to 17 years, have you seen anybody coming into that area?
Certainly.
So, the last one was Visa Phone, and it actually closed up. So I think there is need for Telco, SEC to actually make it much more easy, because we want to believe they're in cahoots with the cartel, not to open that window, because Nigeria is about 200 million, and I think by now we should be able to open it up, because where only one company is having 38 million subscribers, it's not healthy enough sometimes, because you need to share it so that at least the infrastructure can even cater to people. People will not be too much, and we will have a breathing space for competition. And the same thing also happened to the DSTV. I recall multi-choice. I discussed it last time, whereby the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission also need to open up that area. Why are you not giving license? Why are you not making it easy for us to come into to play in that area? So I think licensing is the problem. We must look at the bottleneck in that and make it much more easier. Perhaps you can even make a telco to manage. I mean, a telco company to manage own a state, while some will manage some region, while some will manage federal. The federation. So you must not say that it must be one that will take care of. No. If your service can only cater to people in a particular local government, particular state, I think it's better and to give us more alternatives. Imagine if Abuja and its environment, Middle Belt have their own network, and the South have their own network, and they still have the national network. We can choose. Virtually all Nigerians are using 2 lines now. If 2 lines is for the region and 1 line is for the federation, for the whole country, you can actually manage it. So I think they should review that area and make it much more competitive.
All right, Dr. Aliyu, that has been a very interesting conversation with you on the program. And thank you for always bringing in your deep wealth of knowledge in economics to the discussion. This has been quite insightful. We must thank you, and we hope you have a nice day.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Well, that has been Dr. Aliyu Ilias, an economist and also a public affairs analyst, lending his thoughts with us here on Morning Express on topical issues from the economy, politics, and many other matters.